All right, friends, so we have several clips to look at in this video. 2 advertisements from the Biden campaign, one pertaining to basically the State of the Union, and then a second more formal one, which is basically the first formal advertisement of the spring media blitz. And then several clips, actually, of the Fox propaganda network, more or less confirming President Biden's economic accomplishments. But I want to first start with the formal advertisement for the spring media blitz. It's probably the best advertisement that the president has had so far. We'll watch it and unpack it together.
I'm not a young guy. That's no secret. But here's the deal. I understand how to get things done for the American people. I led the country through the COVID crisis. Today, we have the strongest economy in the world. I passed a law that lowers prescription drug prices, caps insulin at $35 a month for seniors. For 4 years, Donald Trump tried to pass an infrastructure law, and he failed. I got it done. Now we're rebuilding America. I passed the biggest law in history to combat climate change because our future depends on it. Donald Trump took away the freedom of women to choose. I'm determined to make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again. Donald Trump believes the job of the president is to take care of Donald Trump. I believe the job of the president is to fight for you, the American people, and that's what I'm doing. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Can we do one more take?
Look, I'm very young, energetic, and handsome. What the hell am I doing this for?
So again, a really good ad. It emphasizes the president's humor, his vigor, which I know is called into question quite a bit at 81 years old. But he demonstrated it at the State of the Union. This advertisement accentuates it as well. All in all, it's a brilliant ad. 60 seconds in which he talks about past accomplishments, where he emphasizes his future agenda with respect to codifying Roe v. Wade, things like that. And also, again, the contrast between him and Donald Trump, not just in terms of temperament, but in terms of accomplishments as well. So he says that, Donald Trump looks at the presidency as a way to protect and advance the interests of Donald Trump himself, right? So that's a character contrast. But then also using the infrastructure law as a great pivot point. So Trump, would often brag, even before he entered into politics, that he's the ultimate negotiator, right? He wrote that book, The Art of the Deal. And yet, during his entire four-year term, despite having majorities for the first 2 years in both chambers of Congress, Donald Trump tried and failed again and again and again and again and again to accomplish any sort of comprehensive infrastructure deal, even though he promised the American people that. Biden got it done in his first year. And that's a great point because we can compare them on, it's not apples and oranges, we're comparing them on the same thing, and Biden is simply objectively better based on his record. The other thing to emphasize is that Biden's talking about the economy under his watch, because again, this is something where Republicans enjoy a colossal polling advantage, which I would argue is completely unjustified, given that macroeconomic indicators for the economy generally perform better and have for the past 60, 70, 80 years, depending on the metric, when Democrats are in the White House. But because Republicans have campaigned on this for years, right, it's baked into the electorate that, to be conservative is to be more economically responsible, even though, of course, Republicans don't behave that way. This is a Fox host basically confirming what the president said about the economy on his watch.
Biden said last night that was true. It is true that the United States today has the strongest economy.
It's true, right? And I love it every time the Fox propaganda network has to cover the president's economic achievements, because you can tell it fills them with enormous pain to do so. We actually got a February jobs report, and this is what we found out.
The number. We came in at 275,000. Wow. We were only looking for 200,000. That is much hotter than expected. We saw this again. We saw this in January. We saw this in December. We're seeing it again.
No joy in her voice whatsoever. It's just like, again, jobs reports that wildly exceed expectations, confirming that the unemployment rate is relatively low. It's been under 4% for the longest stretch in 70 years. It's been lower under President Biden than it ever was under Donald Trump. But again, it brings Fox no joy whatsoever. And of course, they do everything in their power to avoid associating a positive economic sentiment with the president. And this is the burden of the Democratic Party and the president and liberals and the left and anyone who doesn't want Donald Trump to get a second term, is we have to make sure that we are associating those economic accomplishments with President Biden's agenda. We have to draw those distinctions with the American people. So again, that advertisement was so good because, again, it basically did a bunch of things in 60 seconds. The humor, the energy, the bragging about the record, the informing about the record, the contrast between Trump's record and also Trump's character, and then again, an affirmative agenda for the second term. Biden has to thread all these needles, and I would argue he did them very well. A couple more clips I want to play. This first one here is the president's first speech after the State of the Union, because he's hitting the campaign trail, and he references the State of the Union and his very favorite Republican.
If you're tired, you probably watched my address last night. I got my usual warm reception from Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene. In my address, I spoke about how far we've come since we took office. I talked about how much is at stake. Folks, our freedoms really are on the ballot this November. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans are trying to take away our freedoms. That's not an exaggeration. Well, guess what? We will not let him. We will not let him.
So again, it's good that he's capitalizing on this momentum, because polling shows, it was flash polling, right? And we'll see, I'm sure, in the next week, there's going to be more polling about it. But there was a huge switch in pre-State of the Union watchers versus post-State of the Union watchers in terms of sentiment about Biden. 64% of those polled found that the State of the Union was excellent and that the President Biden's agenda was going to take the country in a positive direction. Biden needs those numbers, and he needs them to not be ephemeral. He needs to bake them in and have them be an enduring feature of his campaign. This is another ad that he put out. It's not really a formal ad the way the first one was, but it was basically a recap of the State of the Union.
I know the American story. Again and again, I've seen the contest between competing forces in the battle for the soul of our nation. Between those who want to pull America back to the past and those who want to move America into the future. The issue facing our nation isn't how old we are, it's how old are our ideas. Hate, anger, revenge, retribution are the oldest of ideas. I see a future where defending democracy, you don't diminish it. I see a future where we restore the right to choose and protect our freedoms, where the middle class finally has a fair shot, and the wealthy have to pay their fair share in taxes. I see a future where we save the planet from the climate crisis and our country from gun violence. Above all, I see a future for all Americans. I see a country for all Americans. And I will always be president for all Americans. So let's build the future together. Let's remember who we are. We are the United States of America.
So again, a pretty powerful advertisement, especially with the imagery, juxtaposed against President Biden's words. So again, this is important. The polling right now, post-State of the Union, is good. Biden has to make it permanent. President Biden enjoys a colossal advantage with respect to funding. He needs to put that funding to good use. I think there was a $30 million investment in digital and television advertisements for the spring campaign, which is good. So we'll see what happens. But again, this is a positive momentum, and Biden is looking to capitalize on it to the best of his ability in what is an otherwise uncomfortably close race.